Good evening. We begin with news this evening with updates on Tropical Storm Ian, which passed close to Jamaica over the weekend and is now being upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane as it churns through the Caribbean Sea. Jamaica was spared widespread flash floods and landslides yesterday as the storm continued its trajectory west of the island, with roads, electricity and water supplies mostly holding up despite steady but light to moderate showers along the island's south. Meanwhile, Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Richard Thompson, says their emergency systems remain on high alert as the outer bands of Hurricane Ian continue to affect Jamaica. He says ODPEM will remain on high alert until the flash flood warning and flash flood watch have been discontinued. The warning and watch will remain in effect until 5 a.m. tomorrow. Duty forecaster at the Meteorological Service, Gail Morris, says that they are expecting some gradual improvement in the weather by Tuesday afternoon. She says the Met Service has recorded up to 30 millimeters of rainfall in recent days. Ms. Morris says this is twice as much rainfall that they record on a regular rainy day. Meanwhile, residents in Western Park in Maypen, Clarendon are also being advised to evacuate and head to the Western Park Church of Christ Emergency Center if floodwaters have affected them. According to the Maypen Municipal Corporation, homes on Harry Street and surrounding areas have been flooded. And over in St. Andrew, sandbags were placed at the upscale National Housing Trust Ruthven Towers apartment on Ruthven Road today amid flooding concerns as rains associated with Hurricane Ian continue to lash the island. The first phase of the apartment complex was completed by the National Housing Trust last year, with prices ranging from $27.7 million to $37.7 million. And sections of Marcus Garvey Drive in Kingston are now impassable due to the high volume of water on the roadway caused by heavy showers associated with Hurricane Ian. The National Works Agency says motorists should use alternative routes at this time. Meanwhile, the Meteorological Service has announced a flash flood warning for low-lying and low flood-prone areas for northeastern and southern parishes effective until 5 a.m. Tuesday. Hurricane Ian has been upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane. The system is expected to produce significant wind and storm surge impacts in western Cuba today. A hurricane watch has been issued for the lower Florida Keys. Hurricane Ian is expected to make a north-northwestward motion today and a northward motion tomorrow with a slightly slower forward speed. On the forecast track, the center of Ian is expected to pass near or west of the Cayman Islands today and near or over western Cuba by tonight and early tomorrow. Ian will then emerge over the southern eastern Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. The system is forecast to become a major hurricane tomorrow. Hurricane Ian is not a direct threat to Jamaica. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Gaston is weakening and is soon to be a post-tropical. It is expected to make a general west to west-southwestward motion until dissipation. Gradual weakening is forecast over the next few days and is expected to dissipate entirely later this week. Schools opened for face-to-face classes today where conditions were safe based on advice from the Ministry of Education and Youth. This was based on the situational update from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, and the Meteorological Office. In a release last night, the ministry said based on reports from the 7 regions as of the impact on the weather conditions in their locality, boards and principals were advised to exercise caution in determining the operations of schools today. Meanwhile, the Education Ministry also advised schools in St. Thomas, St. Mary, and Portland to utilize the online teaching modality until disruptions caused by the passage of Hurricane Ian are resolved. The parishes faced disruption in electricity supply, worsened road conditions, and flooding in several areas over the weekend. School boards and principals in Manchester and St. Elizabeth were encouraged to utilize a blend of online classes and face-to-face instruction today. The ministry had advised that all other schools should reopen for face-to-face learning this morning where conditions were safe. The Education Ministry is encouraging schools administrators to exercise caution as schools reopen. A high alert has been activated for 12-year-old Jordan James of Lawrence Tavern, St. Andrew, who has been missing since Saturday, September 24. She's of dark complexion, slim build, and is about 4 feet 8 inches tall. Reports from the Lawrence Tavern police are that about 5:50 p.m., Jordan was last seen at home wearing a black and white blouse, black jean shorts, and a pair of slippers. She has not been seen or heard from since. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Jordan James is being asked to contact the Lawrence Tavern Police at 876-942-6322, Police 119 emergency number, or the nearest police station. Prime Minister Andrew Holness on the weekend handed over 12 indigent houses in Bell Rock, West Central St. Andrew under the new social housing program. The Social Housing Initiative, which was announced by Prime Minister Holness in November 2018, was developed to improve the housing condition of the country's poor and indigent population. The NSHP falls on the Housing Production and Employment Program HOPE in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. Prime Minister Holness says the time that this housing development took was in order to put in proper infrastructure and give the people value for their money.
And we are now here looking at this magnificent facility. I can tell you that this is the first of its kind in Jamaica. There's no more like this. This is the first. And we spent some time to go through the design, and it is crafted to meet the needs of a particular set of Jamaicans under the social housing and our indigent housing program. These houses are not going to be owned individually. You will be able to occupy them on a long lease because they are built in a strata form. So the persons who were dislocated by the fire will have first preference in occupancy. And I believe we have 12 units here, and 9 of the families who were dislocated by the fire will be able to occupy the units here. The other 3, the community and myself and your councillor, we will sit down and we will look at the needs as they are brought before us, and we will make some decision. But it will be a community-based decision for the other 3 that will occupy.
Prime Minister Holness says 12 of the units will go to persons who were affected by a fire that destroyed their home in the area.
We're going to be looking at rebuilding some of the older units in this form or even a more enhanced form. So this will be an ongoing project. When I became your member of parliament 25 years ago, those housing units still existed, those upstairs board units, you will recall. And since then, through work with Food for the Poor, we were able to replace those board units with another set of board units. And now we are starting the process of giving you stronger, well-built, more permanent structures with more amenities to ensure that this community, which has been around, it wasn't designed to be a permanent community. But having put the permanent houses there and people just live there forever and governments have left it, it is just there. So it's very difficult for us to build the accommodations to ensure that all the people who live here can have a room and a roof over their head. So I want to give the people of Bell Rock the assurance that though this is the first set of 12, as soon as we see a little space available, or if the community were to decide that, all right, we will come out of the little houses that we have there so that we can build better structures in those places, then we would be gladly doing that.
Minister of Local Government and Rural Development says this NSHP is part of the government's mandate to reform and expand the housing agencies to afford housing to Jamaicans of all economic backgrounds.
This is a commitment of the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Not because he's your member of parliament, but it is a commitment on the part of the government to provide housing solutions for those who are in need. We are looking at expanding on what has been put here. And once we have done that, Prime Minister, I'll be working closely with you through the Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation to expand and to take across Jamaica housing solutions of this sort. The next location, Prime Minister, I'm going to be taking you is a district in Westmoreland. And that, Prime Minister, I know will touch your heart because it is a family that has been in need for more than 30 years, Prime Minister. And it took the vision of your administration, your government, to come to the assistance of that family.
For his part, Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, expressed appreciation for the houses for well-needed residents and urged residents to care for the units.
We are quite appreciative of these units, 12 of them, and they look very well. I like the design. And the PM, someone said yesterday when they drove along here and took a look to the left, they were a little surprised as to how nice the design is. Minister PM, it's a design I think we can work on and maybe do a little editing of the design and use it going forward in some places. So just to say that we are asking you to take care of the units, take care of this entire block and protect it and keep it clean and keep the Bell Rock itself clean and enjoy your home and be thankful, as thankfulness is very useful. So again, on behalf of the people here at Bell Rock, as the councillor, I say thanks.
Meanwhile, Mr. Holness says that poverty is no excuse for having an illegal gun and using it to commit crimes. The Prime Minister was speaking at the handover of an apartment complex as part of the government's of Jamaica's social housing initiative at 4th Street, Bell Rock in Kingston on the weekend. Noting that the poor and vulnerable are those who are most affected by these crimes, Mr. Holness said it is no longer an excuse for youngsters who claim that because they are poor and they're from low-income families without opportunities, that the only way out is to get a gun.
Passed the new Firearms Act. In a few days after it has received the Governor General's approval, it will become law. This community has suffered its own fair share of gun-related crime. There are many youngsters here who have had their initiation with illegal guns. There are many, many youngsters here who are affiliated in groups. They don't call it gangs, but by their actions, that is how the police would profile them. The penalties have been significantly increased. And I want to take this opportunity to urge particularly our youngsters who claim that by virtue of the circumstances of their birth into poor households and low-income families without opportunities, that the only way out is to get a gun. That is no longer an excuse. The level of gun crimes in the society can no longer be excused on the basis of poverty and social exclusion. Because the truth is that the level of gun crime is affecting the poor and the socially vulnerable more than any other group. The level of gun crimes are affecting young men more than any other group.
He reiterated that the government intends to initiate a gun amnesty once the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act is entered into force, and he has issued a warning to persons to give up the guns.
From the beginning of this year, we launched Get Every Legal Gun campaign. The police has been out there doing their searches, their routine activities. We have been recovering the guns. And we know that there are going to be young men who are going to be arrested in possession of illegal firearm, and they will face the full force of the law. I'm urging you, make the wise choice. We intend to have a gun amnesty. That is to say that when the law is passed, we will give a period of time where if you have an illegal gun and you would like to turn it over to us, the conditions of the amnesty would be such that you would be able to turn it over to us. But after that period expires, if you are caught with an illegal gun, you will face the full force of the new penalties, which could be up to life in prison.
A young man who allegedly fled when he noticed a group of police officers is now in jail after being accused of illegally possessing a firearm yesterday. 19-year-old Anthony Henry of a Chancery Lane, Kingston address was arrested and charged on Church Street in the parish. According to police reports, Henry was spotted running as they approached him when they were on patrol in the neighborhood around 10:30 a.m. He was allegedly approached, searched, and a Taurus 9mm pistol with a magazine attached and 13 rounds of ammunition was allegedly taken from his waistband. Later, charges of illegal weapon and ammunition possession were brought against him. The police have launched an investigation into murder of a founder and owner of Legates TV and Entertainment, Leon Legates McNeil, who was shot and killed at a party in Hayes, Clarendon on Saturday night. Police reported that about 8:55 p.m. on Saturday, McNeil was at a party when a group of men allegedly came up and opened gunfire at him. When the shooting subsided, another man was found suffering from gunshot wounds. Both injured persons were assisted to hospital, where McNeil succumbed to his injuries and the other man was admitted in stable condition. Police theorized that gangsters may have been intended targets of the attackers. However, the victims were slated to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. 36-year-old McNeil had just commented on an early double murder that was committed on the same day in the parish. In the comment, it is said he was reacting to news that a taxi operator and passengers were shot and killed by gunmen posing as a passenger in the Portland Cottage, Clarendon area. Social media users have expressed their sorrow at the news that Legates McNeil had been a victim of rampant criminality that he had earlier denounced. The Hanover police have launched a manhunt for a woman who allegedly shot her boyfriend to death in the Sandy Bay community over a week ago before making off with his motorcar. The female has been identified as Anita McKetty, otherwise called Hope, whose last known address was Anchovy in St. James, and she is being sought as a person of interest in the gun murder of her boyfriend, identified as Sidhu Chambers, also of Sandy Bay. It is reported that on September 15, at approximately 9:30 p.m., the accused, who share a common law relationship with the deceased, reportedly had an argument with Chambers outside his home. During the dispute, she allegedly pulled a firearm and shot him in the regions of his side before making off with his white Toyota Mark X motorcar. Relatives of the overheard the gunshots, rushed outside the house and saw Chambers suffering from gunshot wounds, and he reportedly informed them that his girlfriend had shot him and stole his motorcar. He was rushed to the Cornwall Regional Hospital, where he was treated and admitted in critical condition, but succumbed to the gunshot wounds on Friday. Chambers and his father operate the famous Apache's Grill fish restaurant located on the Sandy Bay waterfront in Hanover. And those are the stories making the news this evening. I'm Nicole Hales. Do stay safe during this inclement weather And thanks for watching.